All right, everyone, you've made it to the final part of the meeting, which most people probably argue is the best part of the meeting. Okay, you've made your preparations, your introductions, your presentation, and finally, it's time to close the client. Okay, now this is definitely my favorite part of the meeting, also because in certain cases, you can actually receive or accept the first payment directly on the meeting. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the presentation because it depends on what kind of meeting you're sitting in. But in some cases, you'll actually have the first payment locked in directly on the meeting. Okay, so without any further ado, let's talk about how to close the client. All right, now this is the most interesting part of the meeting, obviously. And if you've done your legwork right, then the client at this point will be closed 95% of the way. Okay, so as you would have heard in the last module, if you did your introduction right, they're close 75% of the way, right? If you've done your legwork right up until this point, the deal is basically sealed, and there's not really any smart sales tactics that you need to implement furthermore, because at this point, they're close 95% of the way, okay? So from here, we simply need to seal the deal, okay? And here's how you do it. So what we like to break down in our presentation most often, when actually closing the client, is the financial aspect, right? Because this is what they want to hear. They just want it to make sense to them. So we say, as a foundation, our monthly retainer is set at $2,000. Again, set this at a number you're comfortable with. You might want to make it $1,000 or $800 for your first client, okay? Depends how comfortable you're feeling and what you feel like their economy is. If you feel like you're about to close a very big client, it would be pointless setting it at $1,000. You might even set it at $3,000 with your first client, okay? So as a foundation, our monthly retainer is set at $2,000. From here, we charge a bonus of 5% on the return on ad spend that we create for you after the first month, okay? So what you can either do here is charge a percentage of the return on ad spend that you create. So that means that if you create say $1,000 for them in revenue, then 5% of that will be $50, right? But what we can also do is charge a percentage of the ad spend, right? So if you spend $1,000 in ads, well, then that's, you charge 5% of that, then that's $50. The thing here is, if you charge a percentage based on the return on ad spend, then the percentage should be lower. Okay, so typically around 5% or even less. Whereas if you charge a percentage of their ad spend, which is what we do the most often, then the percentage should be higher. Okay, so 15 to 20%, right? So if you're spending $2,000 per month on ads for them, and obviously they're paying for the ads, but if their monthly ad spend is $2,000 and you're charging 20% of that as a bonus in your retainer, then that would be $400. Right? So you say, you just outline whatever you've decided on here, if you've decided to do it like this, okay? So you say, as a foundation, our monthly retainer is $2,000. And then from here, we charge a bonus of 5% on the return on ad spend we create for you, okay? This could also have been from here, we charge 20% of the ad spend that we spend for you, okay? And we do this after the first month. Okay, so this makes sense to you in a second. We don't do it in the first month. And that's because we work in 4-month cycles, and therefore we never enter a cooperation without signing for a minimum of 4 months. Okay, we've put this one in bold because this is the most important ones. This is the most important point here. We work in 4-month cycles and therefore never enter a cooperation without signing for a minimum of 4 months. Okay, they need to understand this. So this is the premise of this cooperation, right? It is that they sign up for at least 4 months, okay? And so by signing today, what you say to them is, by signing today, we'll waive the cost of the 4th month and sign you on a 4-month deal for which you will only pay the equivalent of 3 months of work, right? So if your base retainer is just $2,000 and there's no extra percentage, right? Well, then they'll pay $6,000 for 4 months of work, right? Because you waive 1 month of that retainer, right? So they sign up for a 4-month cooperation, but they only pay you 3 months upfront for those 4 months. Okay, and that's a great way for you to get a large upfront payment, okay, but also making it a good deal for them, right? Because they're saving $2,000 here because you're making 1 month for free, right? But at the same time, you're making a lot of money. You're making $6,000, right? Because you're charging $2,000 times 3 months, and you are demanding that payment upfront. Okay, and so especially if you're just signing your first client and you don't really have any business running, just signing a client a $2,000 per month deal and then getting those 3 months up front, that's $6,000 that could literally change your entire situation upside down. Okay, so that's why we have the 4-month cycle in place. Like, that's literally why during the presentation phase, that's why we present this 4-month cycle. It's so that we can say when we're signing the client, we're signing you in a 4-month deal here, but you only have to pay 3 months for that, but you have to pay it up front, okay? And so we say, so we will start you out on a monthly ad spend of $5,000 per month, okay? Now this is something you should have decided before going to the meeting, ideally. You know, what kind of ad spend would be required in order for them to reach the goals that you've set for them, okay? Now, you might, you know, have a client where that ad spend is unrealistic for them, and then you might have to go down a little bit, or maybe they can spend more and then you go up a little bit, okay? But you make an estimate going into the meeting of how much you want to spend for them, okay? And then you have these baseline calculations, okay? Now I'd say 70 to 80% of the time, we don't have to walk our clients through this because they'll already be ready to sign, okay? But if they need some more just rationality, some more rationalization in the meeting, then you can present these baseline calculations to them, okay? You can make these quite easy, right? So you just break down essentially what they'll be making on your service. Month 1, they spend $5,000 on ads and $6,000 for our service, right? Because they're paying 3 months up front here, which is actually 4 months of work. So their total cost here in month 1 is actually $11,000. That's a large upfront cost. And maybe your expected return on ad spend is only 2.5 for the first month, right? So from that $5,000 ad spend times 2.5, they'll only be making $12,500 in total return generated on the first month, which, you know, with the expense of $11,000 and the return of $12,500 will only put their profit at $1,500, right? So explain the first month is basically a break even, and it's just for us to get everything going. And then from month 2, everything starts to look very positive, right? Because now maybe you're scaling their ad spend from $5,000 to $6,000, and they're paying $0 for our service, right? Because they paid 4 months up front. Well, they paid for 3 months, but they got 4 months. So $0 right here. So that's $6,000 in total cost because they're only paying for the ads. Expected return on ad spend might be 3x now because you've optimized their ads and you know what's working. So 6,000 times 3, that's 18,000 in total return generated. And from here, you might start taking that 5%. As you remember, we don't do it on the first month, but from here, you might start taking a 5% of the return on ad spend, which is 5% of 18,000, that would be 900. Or you could take maybe 20% of the ad spend, which is 6,000. Okay, that's up to you. We actually recommend taking perhaps 15 to 20% of the ad spend instead of taking percent of the ROAS. Okay, but you can kind of play around with the numbers and find out what makes sense in that particular deal. Okay, and so in this scenario, profit after our service will be after our service and ad spend will be $11,100. Okay, so obviously first month was pretty much a break even. They still made a profit. They didn't lose money, but already from month 2, things are really starting to look bright. Right now, they're starting to make significant money from investing in our service. Month 3, you might be able to scale the ad spend to $7,500 now, still paying $0 for a service, and they'll actually be doing that for an additional month, but we've only included 3 months in here. $7,500 total cost, expected return on ad spend 3.5, so 7.5K times 3.5, 26,250 in total return generated. We take 5%. Again, decide if you want to do a percentage of return on ad spend or a percentage of the actual ad spend, right? But in this case, 5% of 26,000 is 1,300, right? So yeah, profit after our service and ad spend is 17,450. Okay, so that's 26,000 minus 7,500 minus 1,300. Okay, and so as you can see already from month 3, things are starting to look really, really bright for them. Okay, and so as I was explaining, in 60 to 70% of the cases, we don't have to break this down for our clients. They'll already be ready to sign, right? But it can be a really good idea to have this slide prepared, right? With these tailored numbers that you've tailored just for this presentation, just for this prospect. Can be a really good idea to just have them up your sleeve because they might not be fully ready to close because they might just need a little bit more rationale. They might want the numbers just to make a little bit more sense inside their head. And if you're talking with a prospect in that situation, then you just pull up the slide, right? Then you just pull up the slide and it'll make sense to them, right? Because you say, okay, month 3, pretty much a break even, but you're still making money, right? You're not losing money, but month 1 is a little bit of break even. We just have to get everything started. And you're paying for 4 months, 3 or 4 months up front, right? And you're still making a profit, right? Month 2, you're already making more than $10,000 in profit. Month 3, you're already making more than $15,000 in profit, right? So just by customizing these baseline calculations to the prospect you're talking to and having them up your sleeve as an extra support if they're not feeling completely ready is a really great idea. Okay, and then finally we break down what they're getting. Okay, so they're getting, number 1, a dedicated results and service-minded social media marketing agency with one focus only, which is creating profitable growth for your brand. Then we administrate all aspects of campaign management and scaling. We write the ad copies and we constantly optimize the campaigns. You will invest no time into this. Number 3, we will have status meetings every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on needs. Okay, so we let them know that every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a status meeting, right? So this will often be in Zoom, right? We'll have a Zoom meeting. We'll just walk you through the results we're generating, how things are going, right? This is reassurance for them, right? Knowing that they'll be talking to you probably twice a month, right? Maybe every 3 weeks down the line, but in the beginning, probably every 2 weeks, okay? Then number 4, we're available for any questions you may have, but we're not a full-time digital marketing consultancy agency. We like to stick to what we're doing best, okay? I always include this into my presentation when I'm about to close a client, okay? I say, we're available for pretty much any question you might have regarding social media marketing, but we're not, your full-time digital marketing consultancy agency, meaning they cannot just come to us any time of the day and ask questions regarding, now they want to ask about Pinterest ads or Google ads or Snapchat ads. Unless that's the service you're offering, then we're not available to answer questions regarding that. Okay, because we like to stick to what we're doing best. Because if you don't make that clear, then you will have them on the phone and on your WhatsApp messaging, etc., all the time, and they'll be asking you questions that you don't even know the answer to, and then you'll start, going on Google and spending time finding the answers to the questions. Okay, so I literally always include this into my presentation when I'm about to close a client. That is not included. Okay, we like to stick to what we're doing best. And number 5 here, you get an honest agency that works laser focused and rapidly and has no hidden fees. Okay, the reason we write no hidden fees is because the traditional marketing agency would usually have big signing fees, right? So if you sign with that marketing agency, they might charge you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 just for the upfront work that goes into onboarding a client, right? So they'll usually call it an onboarding fee, right? So we have no onboarding fees, right? They just pay for our service and the ads. That's it. There's no hidden fees. So you can make this clear, especially if you're talking to like an older, old-fashioned business owner who maybe would expect there to be an onboarding fee of maybe $5,000. You say, no, we don't do any of that. We just work rapidly. We're honest and we work laser focused on what we do. There's no hidden fees. Okay, that'll be reassurance for an older fashioned business owner, right? They'll be very positively surprised to hear there's no onboarding fee. Okay, and then at this point, there's time for any questions, right? So you ask, from everything we just told you, are there any questions? And usually there'll be a few questions and you just go ahead and answer them. Okay, and then finally you seal the deal. Right now, if it's an online meeting, you can actually take the payment on the spot and you tell them that this is so we can get started working immediately. It's important that you guys understand that we never start doing the work before we receive the first payment. Okay, that's our rule. So if you're on a Zoom meeting, then you can actually go ahead and send out the invoice immediately. And guys, you'll learn how to do this in the final phase of the academy, but how to accept payments with Stripe, etc. You'll learn all of that. It's just important for me to stress that if the meeting is online on Zoom, you can actually send out the first invoice on the meeting and just say, our usual customs is that when we onboard a new client, they actually pay the first invoice directly in the meeting, because this will allow us to get started on the work right after this meeting. So you tell them, when we hang up the Zoom meeting, we'll start working. We'll start onboarding you and we'll start working on your campaigns, right? And for that to happen, we just need to accept the payment right now, right? In the beginning, I was shy about doing this and I thought that's rude, but it turns out most business owners understand that because they also just wanted to start doing the work as soon as possible. Okay, now if it's a physical meeting, it's a little bit different. You shake hands and let them know that you'll send the invoice as soon as you're back to the office, and also that you can't start working before the invoice is paid. Okay, so if it's a physical meeting, you're not going to take the payment physically there. You're going to say, we're going to send you a digital invoice the second we come back to the office, and we hope you'll pay this before the day is over or before tomorrow is over, because then we can start doing the work. Again, we only start doing the work once the first invoice is paid. So just make that clear, right? And it's always great to just make all sorts of these logistics clear from the beginning of a corporation, because then they won't get surprised down the line. And usually when you're just blunt and honest about these things, what you'll see is that your clients will pay your invoice in literally 1 minute. Okay. So yeah, it's just great to be clear about these things. So that's going to be it for this presentation. Again, guys, there's a resource number 4 for this presentation, or for this closing the client aspect of the meeting. You'll find everything we just included in the presentation right here, right? So the financial aspect, baseline calculations if you want to do those, what you're getting, and yeah, just seal the deal. Okay. So you'll have another resource right here that you can open up below this module. So that's going to be it for this meeting, guys. I really hope you, for this module, almost a meeting. So yeah, Those were the 4 aspects: preparation, introduction, presentation, and closing the client. Okay, implement all of these aspects in your next meeting, and I guarantee it'll be very, very difficult for you not to sign a client in that meeting. Okay, so yeah, take everything we've given you, read through all the resources, customize them to your own liking, and bring it to your next meeting and close a client. So I'll see you in the next phase.